Hello, in this video I'm going to go over the textbook questions for Declaration of Sentiments by Elizabeth Cady Stanton. This is one of this week's documents in our Seminole U.S. Documents unit. So a little background, this is also on your worksheet, but this was written in 1848 when a group of women and men met in Seneca Falls, New York to discuss the problems of inequality that women had at that time in the U.S. So the members of that convention, and that included some abolitionists or people who were also fighting for equality for people who were enslaved, decided to draft a document that addressed women's grievances. By making a formal declaration, this Declaration of Sentiments, they were making their voices heard in an attempt to gain equality for women in American society. And so this is really an adaptation of the Declaration of Independence. As you're reading it, you'll notice that a lot of the wording is identical to the Declaration of Independence. And that's something that really gives it authority. There's a question later on that talks about that is asking, how does using the language from the Declaration of Independence help Stanton make her point? Well, one thing to remember is that's actually a form of ethos. So you remember from last week, you watched a video on logos, ethos, and pathos. So logos is using facts, and Stanton does a lot of that. She uses facts, but also by using the language of the Declaration of Independence, I think that could be ethos. She's saying, hey, this is a credible document. You all agree with it because you're all Americans. And if you didn't agree with the Declaration of Independence, then you shouldn't even be a country. Like, you shouldn't have your own country right now. So she's invoking that language to give herself more authority, or to give her ideas more authority. And that's ethos. If you believe the Declaration, you should also believe this because I'm using the same language and making really similar arguments. So we're going over these questions together because they're really about structure and style and claims and arguments. And I think it's fair that you get a lesson kind of that walks you through these. So in the beginning, we are looking for the claim, the overall claim or position that Stanton is making. So she says, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one portion of the family of man to assume among the people of the earth a position different from that which they have hitherto occupied, but one which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes that impel them to such a course. So here she's saying it's necessary for one portion of humankind, women, to occupy a different position, and that this is a position that God says you're entitled to. So I'm going to put an answer here. Women need to take up a different, equal position in society. Your answer might be that exactly, it might be slightly different. And then how does she say she's going to support it? Well, similar to Jefferson, in the Declaration of Independence, she says, I'm going to declare the causes that impel them to take such a course. So she will state the causes that led to this situation. So number two, this is what I was talking about with ethos. In these highlighted lines, Stanton repeats the language used in the Declaration of Independence. It's word for word, but she adds, and women. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men and women are created equal. So this is kind of what I was saying about ethos. Using the Declaration of Independence gives Stanton's argument extra authority or ethos. She's comparing the two situations, or she's comparing the situation of women to the situation of the colonists under Britain. She's saying, if you thought that was bad, if our ancestors, probably even their own fathers, because this is 1848, it can be your parents, your grandparents, it's within living memory. She's saying, if our ancestors thought that was bad, well, this situation is just as bad. Moving on. So this next highlighted section, we want to know what purpose Stanton is stating there. So she says, such has been the patient sufferance of the women under this government of men, without the inclusion of women, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to demand the equal station to which they are entitled. So right there, I mean, she's saying women are demanding an equal station. So women are demanding equality. Women are demanding equal rights. And that's the whole purpose of this document, to state women deserve equal rights. Here's a list of how women don't have equal rights. And then at the end, which is the last question, she talks about what women and other supporters of women's rights are going to do to remedy the situation. So this next part, he has never permitted her to exercise her inalienable right to the elective franchise. So the question is, what is her inalienable right to the elected franchise? Well, if we look down at the footnotes, it is the unassailable right to vote. So I'm going to put that in other words. The right to vote, which should be a guaranteed right for all U.S. citizens. And then how is this right connected to the unalienable rights listed in lines 9 through 10? Well, I mean, the answers might vary on this one. I mean, she says the rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So you might say that only by voting can individuals really pursue happiness or property. That's what gives you a voice to ensure those rights for yourselves and your descendants. So that's a possible answer. Again, there's more than one right answer on this. I mean, you might say that because the inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness were secured by a government in which women had no voice, they had no avenue to achieve these rights for themselves. So again, answers are going to vary there. So I'm actually going to leave that one blank. It's kind of your thoughts. Now, in the Declaration of Independence, you had all sorts of examples of parallel structure or parallelism. It's that he has made laws, he has forbidden, he has done this and that, talking about the king. In this case, we start here. The history of mankind is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations on the part of man toward woman, having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over her. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. So he has never permitted, he has compelled, he has withheld, he has made, he has taken, he has made, he has so framed. Okay, so that parallel structure, he did this, he did that. Who is he in these phrases? Well, she talks here, usurpations on the part of man toward woman. So it's basically all men or male society. All men or male-run / patriarchal is another word for that. Patriarchal society. Then how does the use and meaning of he contribute to the power and persuasiveness of Stanton's argument? I mean, again, this is one where answers might kind of vary. I mean, she says that he is acting as a tyrant. He is a tyrant. This almost shows, so all men are being compared to King George III. So if you thought King George III is bad, well, hey, look, all women are thinking that all men are this bad. It could also be showing that all men are complicit or involved in it. So, I mean, if he is all men, including you, like the husband and the brother and the father and the uncles and sons, then no one gets out of it. Again, there might be various answers there. I mean, if you have another idea of how that use contributes to the persuasiveness, put it there, because that's kind of depends on the reader or the listener. Number 6, again, answers vary. What's one specific theme? Again, that's an idea about an important topic about women's rights in 1848 does Stanton communicate in this document, and what's one piece of evidence that supports that theme? So there are lots of themes. I mean, the current situation where women can't participate in society is not acceptable. So it could be women are subjected to the will of men. Women are not being given their equal rights. You could have God gave women rights and men are not allowing them to have those rights. It could be women must gain civic and economic independence and freedom. There are lots of different ways to state it, just as long as you have a statement. And specific evidence, I mean, you could copy and paste pretty much any of these grievances in the list, just as long as it connects to what theme you put. And our last one here, and these last lines, this section right here that's highlighted, Stanton uses the phrases "we" and "in view of." So how do these two paragraphs further reveal Stanton's purpose in writing the Declaration of Sentiments? So in the beginning, we talked about how she's declaring that women are going to demand their rights. That's her purpose. Women are demanding their rights. Here are the reasons why women are demanding their rights. So here she's saying, in view of this entire disfranchisement of one half of the people of this country, their social and religious degradation, in view of the unjust laws above mentioned, and because women do feel themselves aggrieved, oppressed, and fraudulently deprived of their most sacred rights, we insist that they have immediate admission to all the rights and privileges which belong to them as citizens of the United States. So she's saying, because all these things are going on, we're demanding, well, she details what rights she's asking for, she and the other convention members. So admission to all the rights and privileges of citizens, including the right to vote, right to own property. And entering upon the great work before us, we anticipate no small amount of misconception, misrepresentation, and ridicule, but we shall use every instrumentality within our power to effect our object. She's saying we're going to take action. We're going to fight against detractors and ridicule. That's not going to stop us. We're going to continue fighting for rights. We shall employ agents, circulate tracts, petition the state and national legislatures, and endeavor to enlist the pulpit and the press on our behalf. We hope this convention will be followed by a series of conventions embracing every part of the country. So she's saying we're going to continue to get the word out. We're going to ask people in power to give us these rights, to let us have these rights. State and national legislatures. We're going to circulate tracts in newspapers. We're going to ask preachers to speak on our behalf. We're going to ask journalists to speak on our behalf. So this is really the call to action section. So have something about that in your answer. So that's it for the textbook questions, the ones we're going to go over together. I'm going to bring the rest of the questions over here for the last minute and a half of this video. The next questions are really your thoughts. So 8 is listing 3 specific grievances listed in the Declaration of Sentiments. That could be any 3. Just put them in your own words. How would you paraphrase that? So if there are some that you just don't know what they mean, don't choose those. Choose ones that make sense. Number 9, do you think those frustrations are justified? Did women have the right to be angry about this and demand change? Why or why not? You can agree or disagree. It's up to you, but you have to explain your reasoning. Which complaint or complaints would you consider the most serious? You do have to choose one. Even if you think none were serious, choose the one that's the most serious. And then this last one, are there any of those problems that you think are still problems today? Or if you think all of those problems have been completely erased, explain why. What's one problem that you think has been completely eradicated? Explain how you know. And then the last ones are, since this is an adaptation, you're going to compare and contrast the Declaration of Sentiments with the Declaration of Independence. This one with the theme, that's one where you need one statement that would apply to the ideas in both of them. And then this one, just explain what are some of the ideas that Stanton took from Jefferson. So maybe list 2 ideas, and then how did she add to those or change them up? All right, that's it for this assignment. If you have any questions, please let me know.